Sects of Islam. This book discusses briefly but very clearly about those subjects that are not agreed among the Muslims and that are the causes of the appearance of different sects of Islam. Get PDF 3, get EPUB 4, get Mobile 5. Introduction. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. There is no difference of opinion amongst Muslim sects that the religion of Allah is Islam, that the only way to know Islam is through the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Holy Prophet, and that the Book of Allah is what is known as the Quran, is without any addition or subtraction. And what difference is there in the interpretation of some of the verses of the Quran, and in believing or not believing some of the Sunnah as genuine, or in its interpretation. This difference of approach has led towards the difference in some basic principles and some laws of Sharia. As the basic principles of Islam are well known, I do not think it necessary to enumerate all the beliefs. It will be sufficient if some of the important differences are described here to give the readers a fairly comprehensive idea of the main characteristics which distinguish the Shias from the Sunnis. All the Muslims agree that Allah is one, Muhammad is his last prophet, and that one day Allah will resurrect all the human beings and all will be answerable to their beliefs and actions. All of them agree that anyone not believing in any of the above three basic principles is not a Muslim. Also, they agree that anybody denying the famous tenets of Islam, like Salah prayers, Psalm fasting, Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca, Zakat religious tax, etc., or believing that the famous sins, like drinking wine, adultery, stealing, gambling, lie, murder, etc., are not sins, is not a Muslim, though he might have been believing in Allah and his Prophet Muhammad, because to deny such things is tantamount to deny the prophethood of Muhammad and his Sharia divine law. When we go further, we come across those subjects which are not agreed amongst the Muslims, and there the differences between the different sects of Islam begin. Person of God. The Sunnis say that Allah has a body, not like the bodies that we know of. There is a vast material which can be quoted here describing that belief, but as all the Sunnis nowadays are Ash'arite followers of Abul Hasan al-Ash'ari, I would like to note down his belief on this subject. He says we confess that God is firmly seated on his throne. We confess that God has 2 hands, without asking how. We confess that God has 2 eyes, without asking how. We confess that God has a face. We confess that God has knowledge. We affirm hearing and sight, and do not deny that, as do the Mu'tazila, the Jamiyah, and the Khawarij. We affirm that God has power. What? We, the Shia Ithna Asharis, the followers of the 12 Imams in Shiism, believe that Allah doesn't have a body. Verily, Allah is one, unique, nothing is like him, he is eternal, hearing, seeing, omniscient, living, omnipotent, above every need. He cannot be described in terms of substance, or body, or form, or accident, or line, or surface, or heaviness, or lightness, or color, or movement, or rest, or time, or space. He is above all the descriptions which can be applied to his creatures. He is away from both extremes. Neither he is just a non-entity as atheists and in a lesser degree that the Mu'tazilites have implied, nor he is just like other things. He is existent, not like other existing things. Of course, there are some verses in the Quran which ascribe the words used for limbs to the person of God, but according to the interpretation of our Imams, they are used in a metaphorical, not literal sense. For example, the verse, "Everything is mortal except his face," means except his person. Surely, even the Sunnis cannot say that only the face of God will remain, while all his so-called limbs will die. Similarly, Allah has used the word hand in several places in the Quran, but it means his power and his mercy, as in the verse, "But his hands are outspread." What? Arbery, Revelation and Reason in Islam, pp. 22-23, quoted from Al-Ibana by Abu Hasan al-Ash'ari. As-Shaykh as-Sadak al-I'tiqadat. Can Allah be seen? As a direct result of the above-mentioned difference, the Sunnis say that Allah can be seen. Some of them, like Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, say that he can be seen in this world, as well as in the life hereafter. Others say that he can be seen in the life hereafter only. On the other hand, we, the Ithna Asharis, say that he cannot be seen anywhere because he has no body and because Allah says in the Quran, "Sight cannot reach him." 6:103. The Sunnis use the following verse as their proof. Some faces on that day of judgment will be fresh, looking toward their Lord. 75:22-23. But in the Arabic language, the word nazar does not imply seeing. Often it is said, "Nazartu il-hilal falam arahu," I looked toward the new moon, but I did not see it. Therefore, the verse cannot imply that they will see God. According to our interpretation, it means that they will be looking forward for the blessings of Allah. Attributes of Allah. According to the Shia Ithna Asharis, attributes of Allah can be put in 2 distinct groups. First, those attributes which denote his person. Second, those attributes which denote his actions. As Sheikh Essek says, for example, we say that Allah was forever hearing, seeing, omniscient, wise, omnipotent, having power, living, self-existent, one and eternal. These are his personal attributes, and we do not say that he was from ever creating, doing, intending, pleased, displeased, giving sustenance, speaking, because these virtues describe his actions, and they are not eternal. It is not allowed to say that Allah was doing all these actions from eternity. The reason for this distinction is obvious. Actions need an object. If, for example, we say that Allah was giving sustenance since forever, we will have to admit the existence of sustained things since forever. In other words, we will have to admit that the world has always existed, but it is against our belief that nothing except God is eternal. It appears that the Sunnis have no clear view of this distinction. They say that all his attributes are eternal, and that was the actual cause of their belief that the Quran, being the kalam speech of God, is eternal, not created, because they said that he has always been mutakalam. The Hanbalites so far have said that not only were the words and sounds of the Quran eternal, so that even its recital was uncreated, but its parchment and binding shared the same qualities. In the so-called Testament of Abu Hanifa, a more moderate view is expressed. We confess that the Quran is the speech of Allah, uncreated, his inspiration and revelation, not he, yet not other than he, but his real quality, written in the copies, recited by the tongues. The ink, the paper, the writing are created, for they are the work of man. What? But as we, the Shia Ithna Sharis, distinguish between his personal virtues and his actions, we say, our belief about the Quran is that it is the speech of God. It has been sent by him. It is his revelation, his book, and his word. All is its creator, sender, and guardian. The bitter quarrels among two groups of the Sunnis Mu'tazilites and Ash'arites on this subject are well known, and there is no need to relieve them. What? Arbari, Revelation and Reason in Islam, pp. 26-27. 2. Al-I'tiqadat, place of reason in religion. This is one of the most important distinctions between the Sunnis on one side and the Ithna Asharis on the other. To be more exact, I should have used the word Ash'arites in place of Sunnis. But all the Sunnis nowadays are Ash'arites. Mu'tazilites have become extinct long ago, though some of the great scholars of the recent times like Justice Amir Ali were Mu'tazilites. Anyhow, the Shias say that irrespective of religious commandments, there is real merit or demerit in different courses of actions, and it is because a certain thing is good that God orders it, and because the other is bad that he forbids it. The Sunnis deny this conception. They say that nothing is good or evil in itself. Only what God has commanded us is good and what he has forbidden us is evil. If a thing is forbidden by God, it is bad. Then, if God cancels the first order and allows it, it will become good after being bad. In other words, the Shias say that God has forbidden us to tell a lie because it is bad. The Sunnis say that lying has become bad because God has forbidden it. The Shias recognize the relation of cause with effect. The Sunnis deny it. They say that there is no cause except Allah, and it is just a habit of Allah that whenever, for example, we drink water, he quenches our thirst. Based upon the above difference of attitude about the position of reason in religion are the following differences: The Shias say that God never acts without purpose or aimlessly. All his actions are based on wisdom and intelligent purpose. The proof being because it is not commendable, rationally, to act without purpose. The Sunnis, on the other hand, because of their denouncement of rational merit or demerit, say that it is quite possible for God to act aimlessly. It follows that, according to the Shias, God does nothing which has inherent demerit in it. The Sunnis deny this. The Shias say that all actions of Allah are intended for the benefit of his creatures, because he himself has no need, and if his actions become devoid of benefits for his creation also, they will become aimless, which is rationally not commendable. The Sunnis deny this because of their stand about rational merit or demerit. Lutf, grace, based upon the above differences, is the difference about their attitude towards the grace of Allah. The Shias say that the grace is morally incumbent upon Allah. By grace, it is understood that action on the part of God which would help to bring his creatures nearer to his devotion and obedience and facilitate their moral correction, which is morally incumbent on him. Allah has commanded us to be just, while he himself treats us with something better, namely graced half a all. The Sunnis, on the other hand, say, God leadeth astray whom he wills and guided aright whom he wills, and it is not incumbent upon God the Most High to do that which may be best for the creature. What? Creed of a Nasafi. God's promises, based upon our stand on justice and grace, is our view that whatever God has promised as reward for any good work, he will fulfill it. But whatever he has threatened as punishment for any bad work, it is upon his discretion. If he meted out the punishment, it will be by his justice. If he forgives it, it will be by his grace. Why? We are confronted both by the Kharijites and Mu'tazilites on one side and the Ash'arites on the other. The Mu'tazilites and Kharijites say that it is incumbent upon God to fulfill his threats also. He has no power to forgive. The Ash'arites, on the other hand, say that it is not incumbent upon him even to fulfill his promises of rewards. They go so far as to say, even if Allah was to send the prophets to hell and Satan to paradise, it is not against virtue, because there is no inherent demerit in any action. What? Ash-Shaykh has Sadak. Al-I'tiqadat. Why believe in God? The Shias say, man is obliged by his reason to know God and to obey his commands. The Sunnis say, reason has nothing to do with anything. Of course, it is necessary to believe in Allah, but not on account of reason. It is necessary because Allah has ordered us to know Him. According to the Shiite view, this type of proof creates a vicious circle. Believe in God. What? Because God has ordered it. But we do not know who is God. Why should we obey Him? The Shias say, God cannot give us a command beyond our strength, because it is wrong rationally. The Sunnis do not agree with it. Our actions, takdir, are our actions really ours? Or are we just a tool in the hands of Allah? The Shias say, takdir means that Allah possesses foreknowledge of human actions, but He does not compel any man to act in any particular way. What? To make it clear, it should be explained here that man's conditions or actions are of two kinds, those actions about which he can be advised, ordered, praised, or blamed. Such actions are within his power and are dependent upon his will. Roman 2. Such conditions about which he cannot be praised or blamed, like life, death, etc. Such conditions are outside his sphere of will or power. For example, we can advise a patient to consult this or that doctor and remain under his treatment, but we cannot advise him to become cured. Why this difference? Because getting treatment is under his power, but getting cured is not in his power. It is something which comes from Allah. But even our freedom of action is a gift of Allah. He has given us the power, the freedom, the strength, the limbs, the wisdom, and everything with which we do any work. Therefore, we are not independent of Allah, because our freedom is not only given but even sustained by Him. But our actions are not compelled by God, because He, after showing us the right and wrong ways, and after enjoining us to do right, has left us to our own free will. If we go wrong, it is our own choice. As Shaykh as-Sadiq says, our belief in this respect is what has been taught by Al-Imam Jafar as-Sadiq. There is no compulsion by God and no relinquishing the authority of God, but a condition between these two conditions. Then the Imam was asked, how is it? He said, suppose you see a man intending to commit a sin, and you forbade him, but he did not listen to you, and you left him, and he did commit that sin. Now when he did not pay heed to you and you left him, it cannot be said that you ordered him or allowed him to sin. In other words, we believe that God has given us power and will and then has left us free to do what we like. At the same time, He has taught us, through the Prophet, what is right and what is wrong. Now, as He is omniscient, He knows what our actions will be in different times of our life. But this knowledge does not make Him responsible for our actions more than a meteorologist can be responsible for cyclones and storms if his forecasts come true. True forecasts are the result, not the cause, of the impending event. The Sunnis, on the other hand, say that Allah is the creator of all our acts. No act of any individual, even though it is done purely for his benefit, is independent of the will of Allah for its existence, and there does not occur in either physical or an extraterrestrial world the wink of an eye, the hint of a thought, or the most sudden glance, except by the degree of Allah, of His power, desire, and will. This includes evil and good, benefit and harm, success and failure, sin and righteousness, obedience and disobedience, polytheism and belief. 3. What? Al-I'tiqadat. 2. Al-I'tiqadat 3. Al-Bazali, as quoted in Shia of India, pg. 43, prophethood. Based upon their belief of Lutf grace, the Shias believe that it is incumbent upon Allah to send prophets or their successors to this world to guide people toward the right path. The Sunnis say that it is not incumbent upon Allah, because they do not accept necessity of Lutf. The Shias and Sunnis in the first instance, and then the Sunnis among themselves, disagree about the theory of Isma, infallibility of the prophets. Infallibility. What is our conception of Isma? It is Lutf grace of Allah which helps a person to refrain from sins without affecting in any way his will and power. A mass and sinless person has the power to commit sins, but he does not even think about sins because his spiritual standard is so high that such inferior things do not enter his mind. The Sunnis do not speak with one voice upon this subject. They first differ about the point when Isma begins. Some say it is after the declaration of prophethood. Others say that it is since childhood. Second difference, the scope of Isma before declaration of prophethood. Some say that it covers all sins. Majority say that they are protected from kufr infidelity only. Third difference, the scope of Isma after declaration of prophethood. It is agreed that the prophets could not tell a lie after prophethood. But what about other sins? Some say that they could commit other sins either intentionally or unintentionally, but the majority say that they could commit it unintentionally, but not intentionally. Fourth difference, about minor sins. They say it was possible for the prophets to commit minor sins, even intentionally, but that they were protected from such minor sins which might have degraded them in the esteem of people. The Shia Ithna Ashara stand about Isma is that all the prophets were sinless and infallible. They could not commit any sin, whether major or minor, whether intentionally or unintentionally, and that they were massum from the beginning of their life till their last breath. The prophets, Sheikh Estabek says about prophets that their word is the word of God, their order is the order of God, their forbidding is the forbidding by God, and that the chiefs of the prophets are 5, and they are called Ul Azm, and they are Noah, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad, be blessings of Allah upon them all, and that Muhammad is their chief and best of all. Imams, the Shias say that Imam must be appointed by God. That appointment may be known through the declaration of the Prophet or the preceding Imam. The Sunnis say that Imam or Caliph, as they prefer to say, can be either elected or nominated by the preceding Caliph, or selected by a committee, or may acquire power through a military coup. If he is elected, it is enough that one man should do bay'ah allegiance to him. The Shias say that Imam must be massum sinless. The Sunnis say, including the Mu'tazilites, that Isma is not a condition for caliphate, even if he is a tyrant and has sunk himself in sins. Hanbalites, Shafi'ites, and Malikites forbid people to rise against that caliph. They say that they should preserve. The Shias say that a man must possess above all such qualities as knowledge, bravery, justice, wisdom, piety, love of God, etc. The Sunnis say it is not necessary. A person inferior in these qualities may be elected in preference to a person having all these qualities of superior degree. The Shias say that Ali was appointed by Allah to be the successor of the Prophet, and that the Prophet declared it on several occasions. The Sunnis say that the Prophet did not appoint anybody to be his successor. Author S. Sayyid Akhtar Rizvi 1. Publisher S. World Organization for Islamic Services Wolfies 2. Source URL https://www.alislam.org Sects of Islam Sayyid Akhtar Rizvi #comment 0.